This is The Final Word, just The Final Word, the weekly show. Jeff Lemon, Adam Collins, coming to you from one of our spiritual homes, the University of Western Australia.
Would you believe it?
Getting our actions tested. Well, we didn't specifically do that, but we are going to, on the show today, speak to people who tested many actions. We've got Aaron Chin on the show, who worked on the biomedical program, the action testing program here. It would have been 20 years ago when he was coming through doing his PhD and was involved with that program at the peak of its powers. That's what you needed to do if your arm was a little bit too bendy or, not bendy enough.
A bit kinky, as they would say.
Yeah,
a kinky action.
Yeah, a little bit. Are you being served? So that's going to come later in the show. We'll be talking to Aaron then about what the program was, what it involved, how it happened, what did the dots mean. Let's find out about the dots. That is all coming. But we're in Western Australia because it should have been day 5 of the test. The test is over. India smashed Australia. We've done the Daily Show wrap-up on that, so we don't need to do that again. The biggest cricket happening today is the over 40s national championships, Adam. Yeah,
I guess it is. We thought about recording there, last day in WA, or at least for me, you're going home the day after, or back to Melbourne the day after. But ended up at the University of WA. This came together late, and I'm glad that it did. But we thought about recording from the over 40s. And the only reason I want to mention that is that veterans cricket's becoming massive. We're going to be in Sri Lanka. I think we're there the week after the over 50s World Cup, which will be also at Bhogle, where we'll be for the Sri Lanka-Australia test matches. And this whole world of veterans cricket has existed at some level for a long time, but it's in turbo drive at the moment. So, interested in all of this. It's a shame that I didn't get a chance to turn out for the ACT, as I hoped today. Luke Halpin got me the ACT shirt and kindly gave it to me at the Perth live show, but it wasn't realistic to play a game of cricket today on what's been an extremely busy work day after Australia were soundly beaten yesterday. But it's something I think we will return to at some stage, the veteran stuff, and just get a better feel for why this has become a total juggernaut in the last couple of years.
Not everybody who hosts this show can be a state cricketer, but if you stick at it.
Yes, the state cricketer for you. I hope I'll end up being we'll see. We'll see what's possible in my 40s now that I'm there.
Things that seemed unlikely, playing state cricket is one. Another thing that seemed unlikely would be being warmly welcomed by a crowd at Perth.
Loved it.
For our live show. They were tremendous.
Good.
They were very good sports. They seemed to have a good time, a lot of laughter in the audience. Tom Moody was great. We ended up having a ball, a little bit nervous, first live show of the tour and so on. Can we pull it together? Can we give people a night out that's worth them coming out? But I think we did, and that seemed to be the response that we got.
Yeah, I'm sure we did, based on the response. If people were...
No one threw nothing.
No one threw nothing, and people were very positive about the whole thing, including those who weren't necessarily that familiar with the final word, which is a pretty good endorsement, I think, of what we do up on stage. I was totally knackered when we were up there, and the energy of the crowd and Big Tom, Long Tom, worked for me, and we were able to do as we do. We've got 4 shows to go in the tour, but I know we've given WA and Perth and the nativism over here and whatnot a fair bit of grief across the time, but year after year, I enjoy being here. I think more each time. Even being here on campus today and kind of using this beautiful,
it's gorgeous,
stunning place as our office. I was trying to think about it. What are my exposure to WA as a kid? It's the Wacker. For obvious reasons. Subiaco, very clearly obvious reasons. But then, how you would see it depicted in film. Something like, I know there aren't that many scenes in Gallipoli that are based in Perth, but there are some. And I remember those scenes, and, that sense of it being not only very hot, but very bright. You seldom see a cloud here. I mean, even today, it's
the quality of the sunlight, the way it comes down.
There's a line in a piece that Gideon wrote the other day about that, sunlight just seems to seep into every crack here, under the door when you least expect it kind of thing. And I
feel like the sunlight comes down flat from the sky. It's like a hand pressing down. You feel like you're on a griddle, on a hot plate down here in Perth. I'd like to spend more time. I mean, Western Australia is, pretty much half the continent. And we don't think about it in that way. We don't think about the enormity of it. So one day I'd like to take a few months and just drive the coast of WA bit by bit and take it in. That's on my medium-term project list.
I was we were in a cafe doing some work before, and I saw a picture of Bob Hawke on the wall, remembering that that this is part of his story as well. And in fact, it's like a picture of 4 people with Bob Hawke masks on, one of whom's wearing a Victorian football jumper, just to complete the weird photo.
Okay.
But there are all sorts of things that are interesting over here that I that I think about probably once a year, and that's it. But yeah, this campus is stunning. The reflective pool down there behind us probably isn't quite in shot in front of that old, you call it a sandstone building?
Yeah, very much.
It's very easy on the eye.
Sandgroper
stone, that's it. So yeah, the Perth show, I confess that on stage. I'm like, don't tell anybody, but I quite like it over here.
Yeah.
I know I make a point of taking the piss, but it's not everybody. Not all sandgropers. Not all sandgropers.
We're just having a good time.
Yeah.
And equally, sometimes we make fun of Adelaide, but we like Adelaide as well. We're going to Adelaide
next
live show, 5th of December.
Finchy,
not the 4th of December.
Kettle over a pub.
Hell of a rep.
Reads a book a week.
Yep. Haggis over a pub.
I told him all about our long time episode, and he's very excited about joining us in Adelaide. Aaron Finch show. We'll keep on keeping on doing the thing we do, selling tickets, pushing stuff online. But if you're a mighty South Australian, if you're the pride of South Australia, tell your mates to come.
Come along. Barrett Cinderayson will be there.
Yep.
I was thinking we should tell him to bring his drum kit. He's been learning the drums.
He has.
Recently. He's Dr. Worm.
He's been
I'm getting good, but I can handle criticism.
He's got his drumsticks and his practice drum in the hotel room we've been sharing for the last week.
So what if we just get him to bring the whole kit down and he can do like the Paul Schaefer bit? He can just sit side of stage and the jokes and chip in with observations.
I'm up for that.
It might be something that could work.
Anything that he's involved in works. I've learnt with Barrett over the years. So
he's gone strength to strength in the pieces he was doing on TV from back in India, where he was going around to places where what timing to do the Yashasvi Jaiswal biopic.
Incredible
that he was doing the voiceover of. So that's the 5th of December. Please come down in Adelaide. Adelaide's always it's a quieter place, so I wouldn't be expecting the turnout to be massive, so we're particularly lucky to come there. And Brisbane,
I think Adelaide will be we've done three shows in Adelaide, 2 that I was at and 1 that I wasn't at that you did with Brett last year. There's an expectation of us doing a show in Adelaide, which is great, and this is the biggest venue we've done there. Not gigantic rooms, but they're bigger than what we've done before, so I think we'll do well there, but plenty of space, as there will be in Brisbane. Never done one there either, so similar to the Perth experience. Harsha Bhogle 2 nights before the test match. Harsha's flying in especially for it. I don't think he was coming in until the next day. But he's like, no, for you boys, I'll come a little bit earlier.
Okay.
So
that's nice.
Harsha will do what he does so well. I don't think Harsha is
He's
ever
been having
better.
Fun. It's been nice hearing him back on ABC Radio.
Yep.
This tour.
He's having fun.
Where he belongs. Where it all started.
Yeah, back in 91, 92. I'm sure he'll tell the story of when he was in Brisbane. I won't spoil it, but some of his stories about that first tour, where he remembers how he had to file his stories from the Gabba, are classic Bhogle. So, again, if you're an Indian fan, this might be the sort of best chance you get to get your photo with Harsha.
Yeah.
He's very giving with these things. I did a stage show with him a few years ago, and he reminded me of Jason Dunstall at the Vic Kick Super Clinic in 1993.
They're often compared.
Stayed and signed every single autograph. Harsha stays and does every single selfie.
Yeah.
So
this will be a rare coming together as well of Harsha Bhogle and Eric Bhogle. You're not going to know what that means until you come to the live show. But when you do, you will know what that means.
That's a really good point.
It's probably a crossover that hasn't happened before. Eric won't be there in person.
You'll do the Pogues cover. Is how I see that playing out.
Yeah, so come get a ticket, and particularly come to Melbourne. That's the biggest room, 22nd of December. We'll do Glenn Maxwell's book launch.
Hi-Fi bar.
Other guests and things irons in the fire at the moment. We had to change the date, so we've had to change a bunch of plans, but we'll update you on those, and we can hopefully announce the Sydney plan very shortly.
It's definitely the 7th of Jan. It's definitely at the Comedy Store, same place as last year. The vagaries of the T20 orbit are preventing us from announcing our guest. Let me put it that way. There is a distinct possibility we'll have our guest named next week, but I'm waiting until our guest in question knows what he might have to do on the 7th of January, which at this point is unclear because the T20 world is a fucking circus.
Yes. So to move on, you're talking about Eric Bhogle, we're talking about reflections. The pool behind us, that is the reflection pool. It's a memorial here at the university, and it's a memorial kind of day as well. When this show's going out, 27th of November, the 10-year anniversary of when Phillip Hughes passed away, and something that you think about the last few days because you know that the tragic accident he had came on the 25th of November. We remember that terrible couple of days of waiting for news, and it's something that I think if you're a cricket person, it's probably been at the back of your mind or popped up to the front of your mind at times during this year that 10 years feels significant. I was writing about this. The BBC asked me to write a piece about this, and there's something about like why do anniversaries matter in the same way as why do centuries matter, why do round numbers matter to a human brain. But it just seemed to me that 10 years is the point where it starts to feel like a part of history rather than a part of the present. And then there's a grief in that as well, because if, particularly anybody listening to this who's lost people close to them, when that's happened and it gets that far away in time, then you feel this extra sense of loss that you don't have the proximity that you used to, that person's even further away in your life the time you got to spend with them. So it's a really emotional time, and I think it will become more so because they'll do a commemoration at the Adelaide match. That's when the Australian team will talk about that, which they didn't talk about in Perth, because I guess it might have finished on the 26th or the 25th or the 24th, and they weren't sure. And Adelaide was the one that has the rhyming, given that Australia played India at Adelaide after his funeral. Yeah,
and he was a South Australian player for the last few years of his all too brief international career. I mean, I've been seeing the reflective pool and the plaque in front of us, which commemorates the 100th anniversary of the armistice in 1918, and they shall not grow old, whilst has no relationship to I'm not suggesting that there's a comparison in relation to war, but there's always that sense with young people who've been cut off in their prime, as inconceivable as it was in Hughes's case, being a cricketer, nothing that we ever considered before. I was quite taken by the fact that he'd be 36 or nearly 36 if he was still with us. Like, that isn't a young person. Like, that's someone in the autumn of their cricket career.
Yeah.
And you sort of hear people talk about the way they anticipated Hughes's career to go from the point where it was. It's not about cricket, obviously, but it's impossible not to use it as an anchor to the conversation around him that he'd made.
Symbolic of the life he would have had.
Yeah, that's right. This ton machine, this prodigious talent who hadn't enjoyed too much luck when it came to selection, but in all probability was about to start another chapter in his international career. Right then, Michael Clarke has spoken in the documentary that Cricket Australia have made, which will be released on the 6th of December, along with those commemorations at Adelaide Oval next week, about the fact that he wasn't going to play that test match and Hughes was going to play that test match, which I suppose we thought that at the time, but it's never been said as expressly as that, which is just another cricketing layer to it. But it's as shocking to think about now as it was then. It's difficult to reconcile in exactly the same way that it was 10 years ago, that someone could go to work and then not go back to their family. And the added detail this week in some of the pieces of writing, again, Gideon Haigh wrote a stunning piece about the first responders and the umpires, and from the perspective of those who were essentially anonymous on the day, but their experiences and how graphic and traumatic it was for all of them. I went back to it this year with Glenn Maxwell in his book, and again, it's not about him, but it's more just like the perspective of somebody who was playing professional cricket, indeed playing international cricket with Hughes only a couple of months before he died, I think it was, in the UAE from memory. And his reflections on just how traumatised they all were, and to think they went out and played international cricket, the test team, a couple of weeks after that, sure, as a tribute to Phillip Hughes, but also because the reality was the show had to go on, and the World Cup campaign that followed, and the way that Michael Clarke wrote about it in his autobiography at the very end of his career, how trauma is the word, how traumatised he was at the very end of his international career, and how affected he was for the rest of his life. And he's not the only one. Like, I watched the funeral back recently when writing the chapter in the book. I thought it was right to try and get a sense of and just looking at these younger players' faces at the time, but players like Aaron Finch and Matthew Wade. Aaron Finch was a pallbearer. Matthew Wade was, I think he defined himself, or they identified as being best friends, he and Phillip Hughes. I'm glad there's going to be this chance to have this longer conversation, I think, across the cricketing world, because it'll never be over. And I think the idea that he'll always be that 25, nearly 26-year-old, in the way that you look at him and the joyous videos of him batting, but not only batting, but dancing and carrying on with his Australian teammates. And it never fails to pack a punch when you see compilations like that. It'll never change.
Yeah, the look on the face sometimes, somebody able to throw a smile that big around the place, and that is that is the part that you get to keep with you, I suppose, and the people close to him get to have those memories, and that's all you can do. That's the way the world works, as difficult as it is, as we deal with loss and have to find ways to move on. So cricket is moving on. England are about to play a test match in New Zealand. We've got Cam Ponsonby over there who'll be doing daily shows for us. Jacob Bethel is going to make a test debut after a couple of bits and pieces. A couple of players weren't available. Jordan Cox broke his finger. Jamie Smith had a baby. Yeah, so it was well trailed.
Yeah, so the first bit was well trailed, right? It's a sad story for Cox that his dad was about to board a flight to watch his kid go and make his test debut. Then he broke a digit when batting in the nets. So that's the end of his tour before it even really begins. And because Jamie Smith was already ruled out for paternity leave, they had Ollie Pope as the spare keeper. But of course, Ollie Pope's been batting 3 since the start of the Brendan McCullum era.
Yep.
But he'll wicket keep, as he's done in New Zealand before and overseas before. It's not without precedent. He's done a good job of it. But he'll keep and go to 6, which freed up a spot at number 3. And their air quote spare batter on the trip was a guy without a first-class century. His very selection in the squad. He'll probably rattle off 100 on debut, right? Because that's just the way these things work when you are critical of a decision. But I don't care if it does. It's the procedural fairness thing for me. As someone put to me today, it's looking like a good fit that helps inform why he has proven to be the right fit in this selection decision.
Well, and he's basically the player they brought in to replace Moeen Ali as a spinning all-rounder in the white ball team. That was really where they were looking at him, and they had Moeen batting at 3 in the Ashes. So, if a spinning all-rounder who's not really qualified to do the job can bat 3 last year, then the same thing can happen this year.
Yeah, I guess that's one way of saying it. The thing with Bethel that it doesn't feel right is that, and this is a bit of a cliche, but what does it say to people playing domestic cricket?
Yeah.
That someone who has... there's an expectation that you had to have mastered the level below, or at least shown an aptitude at it. And I watched him play for Warwickshire. Done the work.
At least put in a few years.
And he wants to play, and the fact that he wants to play red ball cricket and wants to keep playing county cricket, that's great.
Yeah.
Again, come back to the Maxi book in The Showman. He spent heaps of time with Glenn when they played T20 cricket together at Birmingham a couple of summers ago. And before Bethel was being talked about for international selection, Maxi's like, this guy's going to be a huge deal and a huge talent. So let's take that on face value, that he's got the skills to take the next step. But I think about all of the players in county cricket who've racked up all of the runs, and now seeing someone getting a chance to do this, it just doesn't feel fair. So again, he'll doubtless make a century on debut. Now I've said that.
Yeah, but again,
that's the way it works.
Say, it actually doesn't matter if he does. That doesn't mean that the spot should have gone to him in that way.
And just to recap what you said before, I'm really excited about the daily shows. So Cam's going to be there for us. Cam and friends, we're going to call it. And because he's there right now, in fact, he landed just before we're recording this and before it gets published, he'll have the chance to get his feet under the desk, and he will have recorded a little note for us, which I'm going to drop in right here, previewing the test.
Cameron here on location at the Hagley Oval. Take roughly 37 of this 4-minute voice note. I could say that we've just had 2 enthralling press conferences from Ben Stokes and Tom Latham, but that would be a lie. They went through certain platitudes. Ben Stokes spoke to the English press yesterday because New Zealand is so far away that England have to do 2 captains' press conferences because the one today wouldn't be in the papers in time for the match to start tomorrow. There's a bit behind the kind of curtain information. But besides from all that, we have a very, very exciting series ahead lined up. Basically, because Test cricket's being weird at the moment. Everyone's beating everyone. England have played 14 this year, won 7, lost 7. When they lost to Sri Lanka over the summer, it was a cause for concern and embarrassment because how could you possibly lose to Sri Lanka? They're so rubbish. But then Sri Lanka beat New Zealand 2-0 in Sri Lanka, which means actually it's New Zealand that's terrible, but only for New Zealand to then beat India 3-0 in India, which was the greatest series in history, and kind of contextualise the fact that maybe England should have done better at the start of the year when they lost 4-1 in India. Then India went to Australia and won by 1,000 runs in Perth, and it's all confusing, it's all exciting. In terms of the World Test Championship, New Zealand still have a chance. If they win 3-0 here, they give themselves a good chance, not a great chance, but a strong chance of potentially making the final and trying to regain the crown they won in 2021. England, well, they don't really care about the World Test Championship. I actually just asked Ben Stokes about that, having just said he said nothing interesting. He gave a really interesting response to my question, because my question was so enthralling and kind of cutting to the real core of the issues. And he basically just went, World Test Championship, confusing, don't really know what's going on. We play loads of cricket. If we play well, then maybe we'll be involved in the next final. If we don't, we won't be. So, yeah, it's one of the bits that frustrate me about England, because I am, despite being a neutral journalist, of course, I enjoy them, I enjoy watching them, I enjoy the fun, I enjoy the silliness, and I kind of go, well, guys, if you're saying you're going to save Test cricket and be this kind of great side within all this, maybe possibly even pretend to care about the kind of global competition, which is meant to be contextualising it all. Who knows? Maybe. New Zealand, they are probably, maybe, slight favourites for this series, and I don't really know why I think that, to be honest. They've got a great seam attack in terms of a fading Tim Southee, who's not had a great year, but he took some vital wickets over in India. But they've got Will O'Rourke and Matt Henry. Will O'Rourke, very exciting young seamer, born in Kingston upon Thames. There you go, there's a boring fact about him. He's been fantastic this year in his kind of breakout season. Matt Henry has kind of finally been getting the rewards he deserved. He's always been kind of known as a very unlucky bowler, but he's taken about 33 wickets at 16 this year, and I do know that because I've written that statistic out a lot in the last 12 hours against England. But then again, England being weird, picking Jacob Bethel at 3, because I think, this is a rumour off the record, allegedly Ollie Robinson, Durham's Ollie Robinson, the wicketkeeper, he's having to renew his passport, so he's not been able to get out to New Zealand in time. I think he's meant to be here for the second test, but that's all allegedly, potentially, and maybe. So Ollie Pope's going to take the gloves, and rather than bat at 3, say if England are batting first, he's going to shuffle down to 6, and Jacob Bethel, with no first-class century in 20 matches, is going to debut at 3. It could be amazing, because I think Jacob Bethel is amazing. He's a fantastic young player. I'm worried that it could be a bit too much too soon, and we don't want to kind of tarnish this kind of perfect player that England potentially have their hands on if he does nick off twice early. But it's all part of the fun, it's all part of the excitement, and makes up what looks like pretty strong England team. You've got Gus Atkinson at 9, Bryden Cast at 10, Shoaib Bashir at 11, who is probably going to have a fresh air game. It's going to be fun. Crowds across New Zealand have been sold out for, I think, pretty much the whole series. Definitely the first few game days here at Hagley Oval, definitely over the weekend at Wellington, and definitely for Tim Southee's farewell in Hamilton. We're going to have dailies for you every day, hence the word daily. And name daily, more to the point. It's going to be me, joined by Jeremy Coney. We fired Daniel Norcross for this 3 weeks. I'm sure he'll miss us. I'm sure he'll be available on other platforms that you don't want to listen to, because you'll listen to us instead. And yeah, take 37, the successful one. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Perfect. Wallop. See you and speak to you tomorrow.
So thank you to Cam for that. Looking forward to his lovely ramshackle takes on each day. He wouldn't mind me saying that.
He'll suit New Zealand.
He'll love it. He said to me on the phone when he landed, goes, I just love being in the Southern Hemisphere. It's just so much nicer being in New Zealand than Australia, mate. So yeah, he's definitely up for it. And anyone who's watched Cam's dailies, they're a bit different to Jeff and my dailies, but that's okay. He's part of the
breadth.
Yeah, the breadth that we do on the show, and we love supporting his work. So we're looking forward to seeing what he produces over in, I think they're playing at Christchurch, Wellington, and I want to say Mount Maunganui.
Mount Maunganui is
rings
right.
a bell.
Yeah, it's the bench depth. It's the Gabba 2021. He's the Washington Sundar of the.
He's the Nitish
word.
Kumar Reddy of the final word.
Yep.
Swings it round corners.
So the sesquicentenary test, even though this has been locked in for a long time as far as we're concerned, apparently it's now official because they've sent a letter to the IPL to say there'll be Test cricket at the end of March.
I mean, fair dinkum. The way this was reported, it's like we've gone Facebook official with the sesquicentenary test, because now the IPL owners have been advised that it will be played between the 11th and 15th of March 2027, and to tailor your play. Well, it won't quite be in the IPL window, but
in the warm-up.
It's more
it will be by then. Because they'll have more teams.
Indeed.
They're adding teams. And they're adding games.
It might be in the window, but it's more about providing that information in a way that would have been fair and reasonable before the auction, because obviously the sesquicentenary test is outside the FTP.
Right.
It's a one-off event.
So
now,
England and Australian players.
So England and
may
Australian
be implicated,
players.
but as if you're going to know who's likely to be picked for a test in 3 years' time.
Well, yes and no. I think it's given. Look, it's not unreasonable that information was conveyed. It's more the humour, to me at least, that it's okay. It's real now because the IPL owners have been told. Yeah, it's a symbol of of modern cricket, if ever I've seen it.
Humorous. West Indies are playing Bangladesh in a test in Antigua.
Yeah.
Stumps at day 4. Justin Graves, who we enjoyed the work of in Australia, tunning up. Love seeing that. Mikhail Louis, who we enjoyed the work of in England, almost tunning up, made 97. And Alec Athanase, who Jason Holder in that interview, that really good interview he did with us, was very full in his praise for Alec Athanase and his attitude as well as his game. He made 90 and Bangladesh 269 for 9 declared.
Yeah,
What's
so
going
this
on
looks
there?
to me, so well, Windies were a long way ahead. They made 450 for 9, so Bangladesh are well behind the game. The way I read this was they declared to have a quick little bowl in the second dig to see whether they can get a wicket before the close of play on day 3. It didn't quite play out that way. Just with the Bangladesh innings, another threefer for Alzari Joseph. That shouldn't jump out off the page, but it does to me because I did the numbers on this last year, went back and revisited them. He's bowled in 65 test innings. He's only taken 1 fifer, right? And he's taken 16 threefers. So there's a reason why he averages 36 with the ball in Test cricket, because when he's bowling well, he takes 3, not 5 or 6.
Become 5s,
right?
Yeah.
So Alzari Joseph's been leading this Windies attack for a time now, and clearly got a lot of talent, but. That just, when I saw another threefer for Joseph, I thought I should check out that number. But yeah, second time around, Bangladesh got themselves
worked. Declare and get him in, bowled him out for 152. Taskin take 6 for, not
Our boy.
for. That's twice.
Double
6.
that.
3 is half as many as 6. 6 twice as many as 3.
Love Tashkin Ahmed.
We're all over the maths on the final word. So they're kind of in it. They're chasing 334. They were kind of in it till they lost 4 wickets quickly. So they're 4 for 23.
And then they became 109 for 7, so they're not going to win. So, yeah, they're a long way behind the Test match. The Windies will go 1-0 up. This is the only series left that doesn't have World Test Championship sort of implications.
Right.
Every other series between now and the middle of February, I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that, has something riding on it one way or the other. So we'll keep an eye on the Tests, but for the purpose of the World Test Championship, both of those teams have already been eliminated. Jeff, I feel like we probably should think about taking our first break. Not yet.
Let's have a little squiz at the IPL.
Oh yeah. We can do that. That's a good idea.
What's the go with the 13-year-old getting bought in the IPL auction? So Vaibhav Suryavanshi, 13 years old, got bought for 100,000 quid, which is a fair bit of money in the old rupee. Fair bit of money when you're 13. It goes a long way at time zone Hyderabad when you're popping down there at 13. You know, lot of what's that raw meat kebab thing that they sell up in Lucknow?
God, you got me covered there.
No, I've a tuna.
I needless to say, wasn't having a raw meat kebab when I was in Lucknow. That's not really my choice on a number of fronts.
I didn't eat it just because I was a bit worried about dying on air. I just thought my digestive system wouldn't be attuned to it. But I did go with some colleagues who were more. Their stomachs were more locally attuned.
Okay.
Anyway, none of that's germane to the point. How can a 13-year-old enter an auction? Like, the ICC have rules for international cricket now that you can't play until you're 15 or 16?
Yep.
15 maybe. So how's a 13-year-old getting bought?
Well, this is the kid who made the 100 in the 19s against Australia.
Okay.
And made the 100 played in the Ranji Trophy.
Right.
And played against proper battle-hardened professionals. We went and looked at that game on the final word at the time. It wasn't a Mickey Mouse thing.
Okay.
There has been wide speculation about how old he is and whether this is not PR, that's probably the wrong word, but whether this has been, augmented somewhat. So, but as Brett and I were talking about this morning, it's going to be vaguely ridiculous when Mitchell Stark's running and bowling to a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
I wonder how Mitchell Stark feels about running in and bowling to a 13-year-old, more to the point.
He might feel pretty good after being smashed around by the grown men.
Yeah, by Jaiswal. Yeah, that's true. I hadn't really considered it in those terms. But yeah, like the overarching on this is that you've got a story which is going to be dominating the IPL conversation next year. It'll be.
Is this like a buy for the future thing? Get him on the list now so you can use him in a couple of years.
Probably. I wouldn't say I'm any authority on how.
I can't imagine he's turning out, next March.
I don't know. Baz seemed to think he would. I spoke to Brat this morning. He's like, he probably will play. Based on the way they structured their auction picks, he knows that stuff from when he covered the IPL every year. He looked at the depth chart. He's like, the way they've set it up in their bid so far, he's like, there's every chance he'll be part of their team. So
not into it.
I don't know.
Have a couple more years of Pokemon Go or something.
I don't know. Is it right ethically to deprive someone of deprived might be the wrong word. If you can earn that money...
You're earning money, but you're not... I mean, you're not supposed to be having a job at 13. I mean, I know, millions of kids in India are, and much younger than that, they have to be earning their living. I
suppose that's true. Yeah, so we're applying our cultural lens.
Cosseted cultural lens.
Yeah, because we don't live in an economy where that's part of it. I guess for a lot of whereas for a lot of people it is in India, I guess. But still, even so, I do feel like it still jars. I don't know. It'll probably work, much like it is with Jacob Bethel. Yeah. He'll probably make 100 in IPL debut.
There were some big pickups. Rishabh Pant got a huge contract, didn't he? Josh Butler got $1.5 million. I still haven't quite got my head around Craw and Lark in terms of converting it in my head, but pounds basically 2-1 with the dollar, so I'm comfortable enough with pounds versus AUD. Liam Livingstone got a big payday, about 800,000 quid, so 1.6 million Australian. Harry Brook about 600,000 pounds. Jimmy Anderson didn't get picked up.
No.
I think the biggest thing, David Warner didn't get bought. Now he's played every single IPL season after the first. He didn't play the very first season. He got picked up for the first time in 2009. And I think I'm right in saying the only season he missed was the sandpaper season when the BCCI played along with CA and said that those players were banned. They were allowed to play the Global T20 Canada League.
They played in Bangladesh.
CPL. Yep. They could play in Bangladesh, but they couldn't play the Big Bash and they couldn't play the IPL, which, in hindsight does seem kind of stupid that they were banned from a T20 competition for sandpapering a test ball in South Africa. Anyway, that's the only season he's missed. He's again, I think I'm right in saying third highest run scorer ever in the comp. It goes Kohli and then maybe it was Suresh Raina and then Warner.
Well, he's a giant.
He's certainly in the top. He's been at times in the top 5 or 6. Shikhar Dhawan's up there in that top half dozen. But he's made thousands of runs, something like, I'd say 6,000 plus runs in the IPL, comfortably the most by any foreign player. It's just weird that he won't be there.
Think about the long stretch of time when he was at Sunrisers Hyderabad.
Yeah.
That included a championship in 2016 with Tom Moody. He was player of the tournament at least once, maybe a couple of times. As it was explained to me, again, I fully acknowledge my ignorance here, it's improbable that he'll be a starter in the IPL now, which means that he is a bench depth player. And the question is it a net positive having a bench depth player who's 38?
Right.
Probably a similar logic to Anderson not getting picked up. Anderson, if you wanted Anderson to bowl 3 overs in the first 6 in the power play to actually play, great. But if you weren't setting up with that in mind, then it had, having him on the bench wasn't as useful.
But Anderson's not one of the best fielders in the world, and Warner still is. I think that's interesting. I think that could be part of it. He's not someone whose age is a factor. He's somebody
he always put himself in the hot spots for Australia still the way to the end, didn't he? So you're right. The World Cup last year, a couple of magnificent catches. That's true. And
even the T20 World Cup. He was herring around the place. So it's an interesting one. We probably should get to that break. Before
that's true.
Maurice Blackburn, tell me about him.
Yeah, Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, the #1 plaintiff law firm in Australia, trying to make the legal system less difficult to navigate. I think that's an important part of their story. So they've been involved in huge class actions, and they're a very high-profile law firm. But in terms of the day-to-day meat and potatoes of the legal system, which, unless you're well-versed in it or unless you're wealthy, it can be daunting. I wouldn't want to get involved in...
No.
You'd feel like you are on your own, but that's the very opposite when you've got Maurice Blackburn Lawyers working on your behalf. A lot of the work they do is no win, no fee. For that reason, is to make it accessible for working people so that their legal needs are catered for appropriately.
And so that you can't be intimidated out of taking legal action by much wealthier opponents.
That's it. So 1909 is when they 1919 rather, is when they started their operation, 30 places around the country. Some of the best, most dedicated lawyers in Australia work for Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, and we're so happy to be in association with them in what we're doing on the Final Word this summer. It's a cool thing for us to do, having a new partnership like that. So if you want to have your legal needs catered for, consider going to our friends at Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. All of their information and bits and pieces that you'll require are in the show notes, and if you need that kind of support, they will be very happy to provide it.
Let's take a break.